Hello, my most amazing artists! How are you today? I hope you're ready to create with me. I have sure missed you guys. I've missed your shining faces on the hill, and I'm glad to join you in your home from my home today. We're going to do a lesson together. The only thing is we're going to be flipping the script. That means your parents or your family have been awesome about teaching you the past 2 weeks. It's your turn. You get to be the art teacher. You get to teach them all those fun little painting techniques that we learn in art. This lesson is for kindergarten, first, second, third, and fourth grade. So all of you are doing this. If there's more than one kiddo in the house, well, then you can split these activities. You can have one person teach about a part of the lesson, for example, how we use our paintbrush, which is also known as a what? Ballerina. Another person could teach about our little friend here. That's right, dirty old SpongeBob. And then we have water and other things too. So you can split those tasks up, or you could each teach someone else how to paint, okay? And you can teach them our little things that we talk about in class. You could teach a babysitter, an older sibling that's not at the school. If you don't have anybody to teach, you can also teach your favorite little stuffies. This was mine from when I was a kid, and this is my daughter's. The other option is a video chat. Video chat a grandparent and teach them about painting and all the painting skills that you've learned. Those are your options for this. So how we're going to do this today is we'll go through our supplies a little bit, and parents or family or whoever is going to be with you that you're going to be teaching, while I am reminding or going through reviewing some of our techniques, you will be helping by collecting those supplies, and I'll get more into that later. Before we go any further, I truly believe in giving credit where credit is due. My favorite elementary art teacher has a blog. She does some amazing stuff, and I borrow a ton of her ideas for the classroom. So a lot of these things that I go over with the kids today, I've used from her ideas that she shared. So to give her credit, I must introduce you to the lovely Cassie Stevens. Cassie is awesome. We will be talking about painting, like I said, but we're also going to learn about an artist, Mondrian. And this here is an example of something that you might create. You don't have to do the Mondrian, but I do want to get an artist in our lesson, right? So let's look at Mondrian here. Piet Mondrian was born in 1872 in the Netherlands. In 1944, he died in New York City. Piet Mondrian was a modern abstract artist in the 20th century. He used a lot of different elements of art in his pieces. He used horizontal and vertical lines. Sometimes they were diagonal as well, but a lot of them were horizontal and vertical. So he used lines crisscrossing over each other to create shape, squares and rectangles. And then he used color. So the colors he used were the primary colors. The primary colors are red, blue, and yellow, and they make all the other colors in the rainbow. But he didn't start mixing his colors. For the most part, he just stuck to those primary colors. I also have my backdrop here, which I'll show you. This is one of his paintings too. All right, families, we are ready to go over some of our art supplies. As I showed you earlier, this is what I will be creating or something similar. However, you could do anything you like, just an abstract painting, or you could even paint a spring picture or something like that. An abstract painting is a painting that doesn't have objects in it, cars or things like that. It has a lot of lines, which he used horizontal and vertical lines, and shapes, which were rectangles and squares in his, and color. Color is usually a big part of abstract art, but it doesn't always have to have color. And like I said before, he uses primary colors. So I'm going to show you some supplies here that you can use for this. We have our traditional supplies over here, and you may have some of these things at home. Even if you have some of these amazing things at home, it is really fun to try new things. Or maybe you don't have these things at home and you need to come up with things. There are creative ways to make all of this work, okay? So you can even make your own paints at home by taking dried out markers and placing them in jars of water. I highly, highly recommend that you only put a little bit of water because you can always add more, but the colors tend to be really watered down and not as saturated if you put a ton of water in there. Like I said, you can always add more. I would let these soak for about an hour or two before you start, and then you can remove the markers. And any water-based markers will do. Sharpies won't work like this, but any kind of even washable or other basic water-based markers will work. Here I've made my 3 primary colors, and if I needed to add more water, I could. Over here, I have some supplies from around the house. I need a cup of water. I need some kind of absorbent paper towel or washcloth or any kind of regular towel. Here I have my things for paintbrushes. I have some Q-tips. I've got some makeup brushes. Of course, all these things you'd have to ask permission for, but old makeup brushes are great to use. You can use cotton swabs, or here, I've even made my own paintbrush. I took an old sponge and cut it up with scissors, having your family help you out, and I have put rubber bands around it to create it. This one I wrapped around the end completely, and this one is more like a solid shape that I can use. Either way is fine. I do recommend that you put it on a plate. This is great for little spills and such, or for the sponge so it doesn't get all over your surface and get on your paper. So I like to put things on trays. If you have sketchbooks and things, those are awesome, but there are always things around your house you can use. You can use printer paper. I like to use paper from old bills and things that are not using. You may want to make sure that your parents are okay with that once again, but bill paper has really thick paper. It's not as thin as some of the typical paper you would get out of a printer. Okay, you can use lined paper, you have graph paper, or you could even use something like a torn out sheet of paper, which is what I used for this lesson today. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but this one has the lovely word of art in here. Art. It's a noun, the creation of beautiful or significant things through music, drawing, painting, ding, 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 sculpture, cooking, dancing, and etc. There's also artful. Artful is a clever or skillful person or action, typically in a crafty or cunning way. Guess what? You all are very artful. Last thing I want to touch base on is our traditional supplies. These things you've seen in the classroom, especially my water cup, the sponge, the tray. We don't use a whole lot of watercolors in the classroom. We use the temper cakes, but these are a great thing to use. Of course, you have your brushes and any kind of sketchbook or arty paper. That's all great, but guess what? We don't need it, and we're not even going to use it today. So I will use some of these, but we are going to try to stick to some more fun new materials and recycling things that are around the house. So I definitely recommend you do that. You guys are going to pause the video and discuss with anybody in your household how you're going to go about this lesson. Are you going to go for the traditional materials, or are you going to recycle some things around your house? Will you be contacting someone through video chat? Or are you going to teach someone in your house that's not a student at the school? Or are you going to get yourself a happy little stuffy and teach them how to paint? There are some extra materials here that are optional but not necessary. You have some marking pens to draw things and a ruler for straight lines. Pause your video and come back to me when you have made all your decisions and the parents or family have gone, or adults have gone bye-bye. Alrighty, my most amazing art teachers. It is time to review our materials and how to use them. Every art teacher has to look over their materials and cover everything and make sure they know what they're saying before they teach a lesson. So it's important that you review too before you teach your lesson. So we have here our lovely water cup. We want to try to keep this clean by dabbing any extra paint on dirty old SpongeBob. We also have our paint brushes and we have watercolors. These are called watercolors because we use a lot of water and just a little bit of color. If you want the colors to be really vibrant, a little bit more color, or use more watered down. It should not be a thick, pasty paint. Here we have our homemade watercolors, and these are liquids. Oopsie. These are liquid, so we will not have to use a lot of extra water in them. We actually want to make sure we wipe our brush off on the lip when we do that. If you are using your homemade materials, let's get started with that. We've got our handy dandy little homemade paintbrush here. I'm going to use this tip because it's it's much smaller than the other one, and I'm going to dip it in my yellow. When I dip, if it drips, wipe it on the lip, not these lips. Okay, and as I go across, I can add paint. There's my lovely yellow. If I want it to be a little bit richer, I can add a little bit more. I'll go over some of our paintbrush techniques in just a minute, but I do want to play with these a little bit. All right, if I'm going to rinse it out, I'm going to dab on dirty old SpongeBob first. Tap, tap, tap at the bottom of the cup, down the side, wipe it on the lip. And I would actually, if you're using a sponge, make sure for these liquid watercolors that you're absorbing all the extra water. I'm going to use some red. I would take my red here, wipe it on the lip, not these lips, okay? And I'm going to paint some red. Now, if you see here where the red and the yellow mix, it makes orange. We have our color wheel, okay? Our primary colors are on the color wheel here, and our red and yellow mix together to make orange. So you'll see kind of an orangish tint in the middle. All right, I'm going to take this brush. I'm going to give it to a lot of the paint to dirty old SpongeBob. Tap, tap, tap. And I'm actually just going to leave that in the water. Let's try our Q-tip. Our Q-tip, I'm going to take and dip it in our blue. And I'm going to mix our blue over here. That kind of makes some different lines there, some fun different lines. Now where the blue mixes with the red, it makes kind of a purplish tint. What happens if we go to the other side of the yellow? Oh, blue and yellow make green, okay? So that's kind of a fun thing to do and experiment with new materials. We're going to switch over to our traditional materials so you can remember how to go over all of the things that you're going to be teaching. We have our paintbrush, which is like a ding, 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 ballerina. Ballerina only dances on her tippy toes. This is not a booty scooting ballet. That would not be very graceful, would it? And she'd have her tippy toes in a total horrendous mess. We want to keep those tippy toes nice and clean together. This is called the danger zone. Our fingers never go in the danger zone. Oh, scary. We might get paint on us. Your hands should be anywhere up on the top part of your brush, and the ballerina should be right up and down as you paint, okay? If you put your hand on the table, you might end up holding it at a slant and the ballerina would fall over. So I usually put my elbow on the table and hold her straight up and down as she paints. And if the brush gets dry and scratchy, that means she's thirsty and she needs more water and more paint. We have to keep our ballerina hydrated, okay? We have dirty old SpongeBob that gets the extra paint. That keeps our water from getting really dirty, and also it takes up any extra water that might be in your brush if we don't want to get too much extra water. Okay, every time you start painting, you are going to start in the water cup. Okay, not just swirl. We never swirl unless we're just picking up extra water and not changing colors. We tap, tap, tap at the bottom of the cup to make sure our brush is clean. When it drips, wipe it on the lip. Not these lips. Now we're going to wake up our paint. I'm going to start with yellow. I'm going to put some water in my yellow. Wake up, yellow. I know, where do you wake up? Sorry. Okay. we're going to start with painting, and we're going to do what's called bumper painting. If you remember, bumper painting is when you go around the edge of something. Ooh, my colors are nice and vibrant. They're not too sticky. They're not too watered down. I can see the yellow really, really well on here. Okay, I'm doing bumper painting just like I would if I were bowling when I put the bumper down, so I don't get any gutter balls. We don't want our paint to go out of those lines unless that's the look you're going for. All right, I can go back for more paint, but if my paint's getting thick and sticky, I'm just going to dip in the very top of my water without tapping to pick up some extra water without getting extra paint on there. And I'm going to go around and do a few more pieces of yellow. Alrighty, art teachers, I've got some yellow on there. It's time to rinse out my brush. Before I put it in the water, I'm going to clean it off. Dirty old SpongeBob gets some extra paint. Tap, tap, tap at the bottom of the water cup. Remember, we never tap on the side because it'll splatter. Tap, tap, tap at the bottom. If it drips, wipe it on the lip. Let's wake up the red. Wake up, red. I don't want to wake up. Sorry. All right, looks like red's woken up. I'm going to bumper paint around the edge of an area. Let's go around this one. Making sure my colors are nice and vibrant, but they're not thick and sticky. If my red looks a little pinkish, that probably means I have too much water. For example, let's do this. See that? That's kind of watery. So I might want to make sure if it was like that to add a little bit more color. These you won't have as much of an issue if they are watered down. There's not a whole lot you can do. That's why I say start with a little bit of color or a little bit of water and add more if you need to. All right, so I've got red on my brush. I'm going to fill in a few more red. All righty, got my red done. Dirty old SpongeBob gets some extra paint. Tap, tap, tap at the bottom of the water cup. If it drips, wipe it on the lip, and let's wake up the blue. Wake up, blue. I don't want to wake up. Sorry. This is inspired by Piet Mondrian. Now, Piet Mondrian starts his pieces with horizontal and vertical lines, which is one of our lovely elements of art. And if you remember, we have a special little song that we do in order to remember. And you guys will have to do the hand motions because I'm painting, but it goes horizontal, horizontal, arms out wide, side to side. Vertical goes up and down, vertical goes up and down, diagonal, diagonal. Beautiful. You know all of your lines, which is a lovely element of art. This is an important part. He uses those lines to create shapes in his artwork, which are the rectangles and the squares. And then he adds color. Okay, he adds the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, and makes his artwork really pop with those colors. Okay, last thing, I'm just going to add a few places of black to make the other colors really stand out. I left my little artist section. This one had the word artist in it. I left that empty. I'm still bumper painting and making sure I fill it in. If you've noticed, my wrist has not been on the table. It's been up above so I don't mess up my paint and get my wrist messy. And I've made sure that my ballerina is dancing on her tippy toes. This is no booty scooting ballet. And the last thing is every time the brush gets scratchy, I'm stopping to add more water. With smaller paintings, you don't tend to have as much of an issue with that. But if you do, oh, there's some scratchiness. I'm going to get more paint. And actually, I'm going to get just a touch of water, remember, at the top of the surface to fill it in. Put one more piece in there. Uh-oh, scratchy brush. Keep her hydrated. One more up here. And then I'm going to call it done. This was a beautiful piece of artwork that I created. Remember, once again, you could use other kind of lines, wavy lines, especially if you're using the tip of your brush. And there are zigzag lines, broken lines, there are spirals, and you can make all kinds of art with fun different lines. You do not have to use the Mondrian style ones as you're teaching, whatever you're comfortable with as you teach. Alrighty, my most amazing art teachers. I hope you have so much fun teaching family, video chatting with people, and teaching everybody you know about painting and the skills that you've learned. Have fun with it and do an amazing job. I miss you guys. You are awesome. I will see you later. Bye-bye.